After witnessing the masterclass that I saw yesterday of MMA fighters going into boxing, I think it's far past time that I make this list. So, we are going to be talking about three MMA slash UFC fighters that I believe should go into boxing for their next fight. So, first of all, I got to do my due diligence here talking about the event yesterday. Listen, man, Tony Ferguson won a fight in a combat sport. I cannot believe it. It doesn't feel like a real world that we're living in. It's like I couldn't believe it watching it yesterday. It was an incredibly early stoppage. I feel bad for Saul Poppy, but listen, man, that's the game. At the end of the day, you come in there. He was going to get beaten anyways, based on how it was going in the third. I don't think Tony was slowing down. So it was great for Tony, man, and I was so happy to watch him win. I think we all knew Tony Ferguson was going to win. We definitely all bet on that and did not bet on Saul Poppy by KO. Dylan Dennis submitted a random guy in 15 seconds. I don't know why anyone is surprised by that. He is. I don't know if he's a black belt. He might still be like a brown belt, but he is a legitimate BJJ player. He was a prodigy BJJ player at one point. If you grapple with him, he's just going to submit you. I don't know why that was even a thing. And then Darren Till slumped Luke Rockhold. I knew that was going to happen. I think if you really watched Luke in the UFC, you know this guy isn't a boxer, man. It was his body kicks, his head kicks, the spinning kicks. He was never a puncher. That was never his thing. He landed a couple good shots. He actually was winning the first round until the final couple of seconds. But yeah, once the chin got kind of touched up the first round, you knew it was over from that point. So Darren Till viciously slumped him. But that being said, we need to figure out who are three guys in the UFC. They might be on a downturn, who should go into boxing and who would be successful in boxing, in my opinion, right now. We saw Darren Till. We saw Tony Ferguson. Look at these two physiques. Look at how disheartened these men are in their career at the point of these photos. That was Tony Ferguson. The hairline's fucked up. It's just not in the right space. He got the transplant. He got over. He got a win in boxing. Darren Till's hairline was overly cooked at that point. The physique isn't there. He was dying to make 185. Um, that vein wasn't popping out like it was yesterday, I'll tell you that, but it is what it is. These are guys who didn't know what they were doing. So, who are we starting with for boxing? Sean Strickland. I think that Sean Strickland's very next fight should be in boxing, and I'll tell you why. He's not even able to be booked until December, and it's currently August. Maybe is it September 1st? I have no clue what day it is. But he doesn't have a fight booked yet. Get this guy in a boxing ring at least one time. I want to just see him box. We don't need to see Sean Strickland fight in MMA. I don't think anyone would be that mad if he didn't fight again. It's more of what comes around his name that you want to see. And this guy's so willing to throw hands with anybody and do street fights. Why not get into a boxing ring and fight somebody? Sean Strickland, he's currently doing his mandatory anger management shit. He's like coaching women's MMA, I saw, which is funny as fuck. But yeah, dude, I think that Sean Strickland's stock is at its lowest career wise, other than when Easy DS KO'd him. He's 1-2 in his last three, and the win was not an impressive one. It was just kind of jabbing and teeping Paulo Costa for 5 rounds in an incredibly boring fight. He is suspended, like I said, until December, and I don't know when it comes up in December. So he might not even be able to get on a pay per view in December. He'd have to wait until January. Um, and I just think that there's so much people know who Sean Strickland is, whether they like him or don't like him. Everyone knows who he is. You tune into a Sean Strickland fight because it's Sean Strickland. You don't he could sell a fight versus anybody. The Abus fight I still tuned into, and I wasn't even I wasn't like a hardcore Abus Magomedov fan. I wanted to see Sean Strickland fight, even though he's boring, even though he doesn't really finish people. You want to see him fight, and you know that with the hands, when he lets them go, he has combinations. Um, all that being said, we have to find the perfect opponent that would be willing to take kind of a fight in 8 weeks or so. Now, this is hypothetical, and we are going to exist in a world where this guy does not have a matchup coming up soon. And I think it's soon enough where this guy could still turn around and do it if it goes his way. But the guy that Sean Strickland should have a boxing match against at some point in his career when he wants to go into boxing, I think that Sean Strickland should fight Mike Perry. They are both 185ers now. Perry's last fight, he weighed in at 197 versus Jake. I mean, he was bigger for that, but still. Mike Perry versus Sean Strickland. Are you telling me that is not the most white trash cinema of all time? The worst like poverty stricken areas that you know will all be tuned into this fight, probably yelling slurs at the TV, probably yelling at the gay people outside. They're probably yelling at a lot of people. But Sean Strickland and Mike Perry will do numbers as a boxing main event. You put like a decent co-main, you put like Tony Ferguson versus somebody as the co-main event. Dude, you could do legitimate pay-per-views of this. Mike Perry can sell a fight, Sean Strickland can sell a fight. If you do like Dennis and Tony Ferguson as the co-main, that's like a legitimate pay-per-view draw of a card. That's why, like, you need to just put personalities against each other. I think that sells them more than anything. I actually cared about Dylan Dennis's last fight. Do you know how long it's been since Dylan Dennis has won a fight in anything? It's been like 8 years. So, congratulations, Sean Strickland. You will be facing Mike Perry. That's winnable for him. He's much bigger than Mike Perry. He could keep him at range and win that fight. And I think that he'd like it a lot more than having to deal with low kicks and having to deal with body kicks and the wrestling. And if he could just train boxing and know that he can let his hands go, I think it would suit him better. It didn't work for Tyron Woodley, but I think Sean Strickland's just a little bit better mentally when it comes to the boxing side of things. So I'm going to say that Sean Strickland is the first guy that we need to cross over into boxing. Number two, who's going to be my number two guy? And this isn't a ranking, it's just who I think should. We need a guy who's on a downturn. We need a guy who is at a real low point in his career. Jamal Hill. I think Jamal Hill makes a lot of sense to go into boxing, and I'll tell you why, man. First of all, nobody likes Jamal Hill currently. He has talked himself into being a hated guy. I knew a lot of people that at the time of him winning the Glover Teixeira fight were really happy for him. Because it was like, holy shit, like Jamal Hill, he's been knocking everyone out. He put a dominating performance literally on Glover Teixeira. Like, this guy's coming around. We all fuck with Jamal Hill. We all made Jamal Hill TikTok fan pages. We all did that. And then he talked his way so badly into a hole where you get knocked out and dominated by Alex Pereira. You get knocked out and dominated by Yuri Prohaska. You get dropped like 80 times versus Khalil Roundtree and get 50-45. And then, like, he's on Twitter. This is still one of the funniest interactions of all time. This guy replies to Jamal Hill, "We need you to humble Alex Pereira." That's a very nice thing to say. Like, maybe this guy doesn't fuck with Alex. He wanted Jamal to win. Jamal replies, "Humble my nuts, bro." Dog, what are we doing, bro? Like, what? Jamal Hill's so stupid. I literally, my Google search was Jamal Hill dumb. So, that tells you all you need to know about what I was able to find on Jamal Hill just as a human being. But yeah, man, he's 0-3 in his last three. Like I said, he's been dropped a ton of times. I really think his stock is at the lowest it'll be. Because now I don't think it can get lower. If he were to lose again in an MMA fight, it would be like, oh, okay, Jamal Hill lost, like, whatever. But, like, he is at a point now where when he lost to Khalil, people were like, oh shit, like Jamal Hill is not the same as he used to be. Like that was kind of a litmus test. Like, is he still there? Is he not? I don't know how motivated he is anymore in MMA. I think the low kicks really have been giving him problems for the past couple of fights. And his knees have been gone. He doesn't have an ACL anymore or whatever issues he's had with his lower leg. But yeah, man, he's just struggled and he's at a real low point and we need to get this guy into boxing because he is a serious one-punch knockout artist. What he did to Jamal Hill, what he did to Jimmy Crute, or not what he did to Jamal Hill, what he did to Johnny Walker, Jimmy Crute, dropped Glover Teixeira, I'm pretty sure. Maybe he didn't actually. He's had moments in a lot of his fights. He's hurt a lot of people in there. Um, and he's a guy that could make something of a boxing career if he just had to throw punches. And he didn't have to worry about all the moving around, and he could be pretty flat footed and get away with it at the higher weight classes. So who is Jamal Hill going to face? We need a boxing opponent for Jamal Hill for his debut on Misfits. You're telling me you wouldn't want to see Yoel Romero, the Soldier of God, versus Jamal Hill. Is that not an unbelievable fight? Jamal, I love you. I love you, Jamal. They turned you into a machine, Jamal. I turned you into a machine. Like he's Yoel Romero, aura farming, 48 years old. He should fight Jake Paul, by the way. But Yoel Romero might be. I'm not gonna lie. Yoel might beat Jamal Hill. Like I think sneaky, like on the low, Yoel Romero might knock out Jamal Hill in a boxing fight. But this would be a banger, dude. You had like a main event of Jamal Hill and Yoel Romero. Dude, you could sell the shit out of that. I wanted to use Yoel for the final matchup, but I found a matchup that was even better. But dude, Yoel and Jamal, that's a sellable fight. That's two big names. Personalities wise, I don't love Jamal Hill as a personality, but I think people love Yoel. He's kind of got a cult following. I am one of them. I think we are one of them. And he's still doing it, man. He's still in great shape. At however, I don't even know how old this guy is anymore, but yeah, man, I think you take Yoel off of the Dirty Boxing and BKFC roster, and you put this dude in a boxing fight, man. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I think that's a banger. We need a final guy to transition, and I want to switch it up a little bit. I want a guy who is at the peak of his interest for the rest of his career right now. There is one guy in the UFC in the heavier weight classes who I believe for the rest of his career will never be in as high of fan favor or stock as he is right now. Who is that guy? Derek Lewis. Um, Derek Lewis is at a point where he's funny as fuck. Everyone knows Derek Lewis. Everyone turns into the fights. I think the Nashville fight even somehow brought up his stardom. And he's just got so many clippable moments, man. He's just a funny dude. He was built for social media. My balls was hot, and then he's got like look at this tweet in the middle. He's literally sitting next to Sean O'Malley, by the way. Like this tweet at the movie seating next to someone that would go crazy in here if he gets up too quick, and then four punching emojis with the sleeps. What a guy Derek Lewis is. 2016, it was a different time. Literally sitting next to Sean O'Malley. Didn't know that he was chill like that. It is what it is. And listen, I think he could take the pants off too in boxing if he wanted to. And he's a legitimate one punch knockout artist. Like he hits so hard. Imagine this guy with boxing gloves on versus heavyweights. He's small, or not small, but he's shorter for heavyweight. Like he's, just frankly not as tall as some of them. But he's two and one in his last three. He's like 40 or 41. I think he's 40. But 2-1 in his last three. I think that's the best three-fight stretch you're going to get out of him, other than a random KO in like three fights from now. Um, and it's really a point where he is as viral as he's going to be. Why not end on that high note and go take a boxing fight? It's the most money he'll ever be able to make right now. And he's a guy that's about money. He's said that since the beginning, that he takes these fights for money. That's why he does it, to feed the family. That's why he only fights like once a year. Um, but I do believe that there is one man that Derek Lewis would leave the UFC forever to fight in a boxing ring. I think that the next Misfits main event, like massive card that they can make, you couldn't sell this at like a Riyadh season level fight, but you could make a Misfits fight out of it, and it would make a lot of money. You would do it in the US with a lot of fanfare. Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou in boxing. Francis Ngannou wants to take a boxing fight. He wants to jump to Deontay Wilder. I don't like that. I think he should take a warm-up fight before he does that. And I think Derek Lewis is the perfect opponent to do it against. I think that we are at a point now where Derek Lewis is 40, Ngannou's 39, about to be 40. I think that is the final chance to sell a rematch between the two of them. It is the two heaviest punchers, I believe, on the planet other than Deontay Wilder, but he is not the same anymore. And Big Bang Zhang actually also is a pretty good puncher, but I think you're talking about two guys that have legitimate like kill shot power in their right hands. I think the first fight in MMA, they were a little scared, whatever it was. If Ngannou was tentative off a loss, Lewis knew it was a big moment. It was the first big moment in his career, actually. Um, I think you have this golden opportunity to really sell this fight one last time, dude. Imagine you getting Ngannou and Lewis. It's scary, the tension and the build-up. They're saying they're going to knock each other out. You do a co-main event of Yoel Romero and Jamal Hill, like I just said. You're telling me that's not one of the biggest boxing main and co-main events you could watch? You would go and see that in the U.S. They did that in L.A. They did that in Texas. Dude, imagine they went to Houston for it for Derek Lewis. That would be nuts. You could do it anywhere, man. You could do it in a legitimate like arena, and you could sell that out probably. I think Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou is a massive boxing fight. And I think all three of these are, man. If you go back, Yoel Romero, Jamal Hill, Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Sean Strickland, and Mike Perry. These are the fights that you can make right now in boxing. And these are three guys, and let me be clear about this, by the way, before anyone gets too mad at me. These are three guys that I think at some point should go to boxing. The only guys who I think right now should go to boxing are Jamal Hill and Derek Lewis. I think Jamal Hill's stock is low. I don't think the UFC is going to give him another favorable matchup. I think Khalil was the last one where they're like, okay, we'll give you a chance. I think they're going to do him versus like I was gonna say Min Yang Zhang, but I don't think that's gonna happen now. They're gonna give him some crazy prospect probably, and then you're talking about like, I mean, Derek Lewis is not going to be as popular as ever for right now. I know that Dana probably wouldn't let him go, but he's 40. I think you kind of have to move to boxing now if you're Derek. I think there's not much for him left in MMA. He's not going to be a champ. Unless he gets another knockout win, like he like flukes fucking Curtis Blades again, like for a fifth time, or he fights like Pavlovich again in a rematch and wins. Otherwise, I don't think that's the case. I think you can make him and Ngannou. I think you can make Perry and Strickland, and I think you can make Hill versus Yoel Romero. I do think Sean is going to stick around in the UFC a little bit longer, but I'm just saying him versus Perry would be an awesome fight. So that is going to do it for today's Money Manziel MMA production. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. As always, TikTok is at Money Manziel MMA. Like, comment, and subscribe down below, boys. It's been a pleasure to be back and to be making these videos. Let me know what you thought about the Misfits card yesterday, because I thought it was a banger, man. I hope that we get more fights like that in the future. Get some more of these MMA guys versus other MMA guys in boxing. I think that'll be cool. So I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out.